Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that the weak are the ones who most love pleasure? Why would someone destroy their own reason just for a moment of satisfaction? It is as if they live to pacify the body, not to elevate the soul. But behind that pleasure lies a deeper psychological tragedy, a malady of logic that enslaves a person to something they believe grants them freedom. Today, we will deconstruct one of the darkest paradoxes in modern psychology, why the weak always worship pleasure, an irony that Al-Kindi warned of more than 1,000 years ago, that a person who submits to their base desires is not merely sinning, but losing the highest function of their existence, reason. They are still alive, but their soul is asleep. They think, but their thoughts are bound by the senses. Al-Kindi asserted that the essence of a human being is not the body, but the nafs nathika, the rational soul capable of understanding cause and effect. Therefore, whoever loses the ability to weigh cause and consequence has lost their humanity. This is the first foundation, the principle of causality. There is no effect without a cause, no action without a definite consequence. But the weak person, obsessed with pleasure, forgets this principle. They see only the pleasing effect, not the destructive cause. This is where the logical fallacy, mukhalatha, begins to work. The human brain, in modern psychology, is said to have a habit system. When the body receives a pleasant stimulus, dopamine rises, and reason is deceived into thinking, this is good. It no longer weighs with Buran or rational proof. It stops asking why, and only asks, how can I get it again? Thus they no longer live as a thinker, but as a collector of sensations. This is the most subtle form of slavery, emotional slavery. In relationships, in business, in worship. They love because they want to be admired, work because they want to be praised, and worship because they want to be seen. Every intention becomes a transaction, and every transaction gives birth to spiritual fatigue. They believe they are free, when in fact they are merely a slave to stimulus. This is dark psychology in a spiritual form, when a person loses the ability to distinguish between desire and truth. Al-Kindi called this wahm, the imaginative power that is not subject to reason. Wahm creates false images that seem logical, but are rooted in passion. It makes a person believe something because they want to believe it, not because it is true. Thus, the psychologically weak person is the strongest in debate, yet the poorest in argument. They quote, imitate, and reject, but never think from first principles. The first principle, O wise listener, is this: everything has a cause, and the highest cause is the first intellect, the creator. Therefore, any form of pleasure that is not connected to this highest cause will end in emptiness. This is what we see in modern psychology: depression, anxiety, existential fatigue. Those who receive the most pleasure are often the ones who lose the most meaning, because they revolve around effects instead of returning to the cause. Look at the world of work, the world of business, even romantic relationships. People build their lives upon sensation, a dopamine-driven mindset. They strive to be loved, not to understand love itself. They try to appear strong, not to be rationally strong. And when the results do not meet their expectations, they blame fate, not the disorder of their own logic. Yet Al-Kindi had already warned, whoever does not know the cause is like one walking in darkness without a lamp. How does one escape this cycle? Through tazkiyat al-aql, the purification of the intellect, through the contemplation of cause and effect. Do not be reactive to emotions. Analyze every impulse as a judge weighs evidence. When you are angry, ask, what is the cause of this anger? When you are tempted, ask, is this a pleasure that brings a good or a bad consequence? Every pause between an impulse and an action is a sacred space where reason makes its decision. Therein lies true freedom. In the practice of life, business, education, relationships, this principle gives birth to rational conduct. In business, they are not tempted by momentary profit, because they understand the long-term cause. In education, they do not study for a degree, but to understand truth. In relationships, they love with justice, not out of lust, but out of virtue. That is the psychologically strong person, not one who conquers the world, but one who conquers themselves with clear logic. And in the end, inner tranquility is not born from satisfaction, but from logical certainty. Yaqin, aqli. When the intellect understands the order of the universe, it realizes that everything has a purpose, and that purpose returns to the ultimate cause. Thus, true happiness is not when desires are fulfilled, but when reason and revelation unite in the awareness that truth is not changed by feelings, and nobility does not depend on the perception of others. This is what Al-Kindi called al-sa'ada al-kushwa, the highest intellectual happiness. At the moment when reason submits to the first truth, and passion submits to reason, the soul achieves harmony with the cause of all causes. So know this, O listener. The weak worship pleasure because they have forgotten how to think. But the strong subdue pleasure because they know the truth. And therein lies true strength, not in power over the world, but in the clarity of reason that illuminates the eternal soul.